Hey, everybody. Pastor Steve Owens here from Mount Calvary Baptist Church in Bedford. I'm also the Northeast Regional Catalyst for the State Convention of Baptists in Ohio. And I have the privilege of leading the Lead Well Conference, which will be May 5th, 16th and 17th at Mount Calvary Baptist Church. And so I look forward to you guys coming on out and be encouraged by the great lineup of speakers that are going to be there. As a matter of fact, today we have one of the speakers on, Pastor Rick Duncan. He is the founding pastor of Cuyahoga Valley Church, and the man's a tremendous leader. So we're just glad to have him on the Lead Well podcast. Brother Rick, thanks so much for jumping on.
Yeah, well, I enjoy hanging out with you. Anytime I have a chance, it's always fun. So, yeah, thanks.
Absolutely appreciate it, man. And so we're just going to jump in. So this year's theme for Lead Well is endurance in ministry, and just want to get your thoughts on that. Like, why is it important that we endure in ministry?
Well, it says in Revelation chapters 2 and 3, you have all these letters to the churches. And one of the things that always strikes me is that every letter ends with an admonition to overcome, along with a promise that takes place when you overcome. So to me, endurance, overcoming, perseverance is one of the hallmarks of what it means to be a follower of Christ. We are in a study in our church right now in the book of Hebrews. And that's really one of the messages of Hebrews too, is that we not shrink back, that we not drift, that we stay steadfast, because we have a great high priest who's done all these wonderful things for us. So our response to that is to hold fast to him. It's to draw near to him, and it's to endure all the way to the end. So I think this whole concept of endurance is not only important for leaders, but it's just important for Christians.
Mhm.
It's one of the things that just absolutely necessary. So yeah, the temptation is to quit. The temptation is to drift. The temptation is to shrink back. The temptation is to deconstruct your faith. But what believers do, what followers of Christ do, and certainly what leaders do, is we endure.
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, even thinking about many leaders, how I came across a study in Barna on their website, how many pastors are like enduring or feeling burnout and, thinking about the stress that comes along with the pastorate. And even some like, what, maybe I just go find a different job somewhere. Right. So what would be your encouragement for them to continually to press on forward in the call, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that word that you just used is huge. That's the first thing that comes to mind, is for us to consider the calling that we have received. And so if God has called you to this service, I mean, that doesn't mean that necessarily you're going to be in full-time vocational work for the rest of your life. But it does mean that this calling that we have to lead, to pastor, to shepherd, to teach, to make disciples, it's not a revocable call. It's something that Jesus has told us that we need to do. So he said to Peter, for example, follow me, and I'm going to make you a fisher of men. And there were times when Peter, he at the end of his life, he wanted to go back to fishing, right? And she says, no, wait a minute. Remember that calling that I gave you? Do you love me? Yeah, I love you. Okay, well, feed my lambs, tend my flock, and so forth. So I think as I remember about Peter too, he obviously denied Jesus those 3 times. And Jesus even predicted that. He said, hey, Satan has desired to sift you, but I have prayed for you, and you will return to me, and you will strengthen your brothers. So I think we can take a lot from that whole scenario of Peter as we think about that. But it all began in Matthew chapter 4, verse 19. Follow me.
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
going to make you fishers of men. So I think we all have to go back to like that initial call and realize, man, he meant business when he called me.
Yeah.
And he still means business when he called me. So just to go back and refresh yourself of that initial call, I think is important for this whole concept of perseverance.
Oh, that's good. As I think about that, and I think about what you're going to be talking about at Leadwell, about the importance of endurance in developing the next generation, and going back to that call, it kind of reminds me of Elijah when he's like frustrated with how things are going with Jezebel, and he's like, "Oh, this is crazy." So he goes to God, right? And the Lord is like, "Why are you here?" Right? Go back,
Yeah, yeah,
and matter of fact, get a mentee,
yeah,
get Elisha,
yeah,
right, who would
yeah,
take the mantle, right?
yeah.
So as you begin to think about the importance of developing and enduring and developing the next generation, what are some of your thoughts around that?
Well, I think it's important for us to remember what Jesus was doing when he called his disciples. When you look at film and art of Jesus and the disciples, typically they are about the same age as Jesus. And in some cases, they're a little bit older than Jesus. They either got the bald head like me, or they got gray hair and beard and all that stuff. But if you really study this, I think you can make a strong case for all the disciples being younger than Jesus, and maybe even teenagers. I remember one time I surveyed a bunch of Greek and New Testament scholars at various seminaries. And the question was, how old were the disciples? And most of them said, well, we don't know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just kind of look at the context of biblical history and how the rabbis chose their followers, they're probably younger.
Okay.
And probably most of them were teenagers. Now we know Peter was married. That doesn't necessarily mean he wasn't a teenager in those days, but maybe he was in his 20s. We know Matthew was a tax collector. Maybe he was a little bit older, and Judas was a treasurer. Maybe he was a little bit older, but probably most of those guys were young. So Jesus models investing in the next generation.
That's good.
That's what he's modeling.
Yeah, that's good.
So when you look at stories about Jesus and you realize he's got this ragtag group following him around, he's investing in the next generation.
Yeah.
So if we want to really be like Jesus, we need to invest in people younger than we are. And of course, I'm 71 now, so everybody's about younger than me. But but what am I doing to pass along what the Lord has given me? And that's right in the line of Activity chapter 2, verse 2, things you've learned from me.
Yeah.
Please trust the faithful men who will be able to teach others also. Well, I mean, yeah, I could hang out with 71-year-olds and teach them, but maybe my time would be better spent trying to invest in guys that are in their 20s or in their 30s.
That's good.
Because I'm not going to be here probably. Maybe there's a way, way, way outside chance that I'll be here in 2050. But if I make it, I'll be 97. If I make it, I'll be 97. But who am I investing in who's going to be a leader in the church in 2050?
That's good.
Like I can have influence on the church in 2050 without even being here.
Yeah.
If I invest myself in the next generation.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And so one of the questions I think many people would have is, okay, so I'm looking throughout my congregation and I'm seeing the people in my church, and what are some of the things I should be looking for? Like, if you can just give us like one or two, right? What are some of the things they should be looking for in a future leader?
Yeah. I mean, the classic answer is look for faithful, available, teachable people. Look for fat people, right?
Oh, that's good. So what is the fat? What is that again?
Faithful,
Mhm.
available, teachable.
Okay. All right. Love that.
So I'm looking for somebody who obviously has demonstrated reliability or faithfulness, faithful in their Bible reading, in their prayer, in their church attendance, in their commitment to their family and that type of thing. And then, once I find somebody that's faithful, I kind of look and I go, okay, there's somebody that maybe I want to invest in. Then I explore, are they available?
Mhm.
Are they going to make time in order to go to that next level? So, hey, do you want to get together for coffee? And if they keep saying, yeah, I'd love to get together, but they can't make time for you, it's like, okay, maybe I need to go to the next person. And then obviously teachable, somebody that wants to learn, wants to grow. So when you give them, hey, why don't you watch this YouTube video and let's dialogue about that. And if they're like hungry, it's like, oh, thanks for giving me that. Then you go, okay, there's somebody that can invest in. For example, my friend Mac Lake wrote a book called, recently published a book called Leading Yourself.
Mhm.
And the first chapter in that book really helps a leader identify their calling, their mission, and all that kind of stuff. So I've got a young guy who's a young dad. He goes to Cuyahoga Valley Church, Brunswick campus. And, I've built a relationship with him, and he's trying to figure out what's God doing with me next. And I know he's hungry because I said to him, hey, get this book and read this first chapter and do all of the work that's required in the first chapter. And then let's meet together. He got the book just like that.
Yeah.
He worked through that chapter, and I'm meeting with him for breakfast on Wednesday.
Good.
So he's that faithful, available, teachable guy. So those are the people that you're looking for, and God's raising them up all the time. And I think we have to have kind of a I see in you attitude.
Good.
Here,
Explain
I
that.
see something in you. Because that's really what the Lord did when he chose his disciples. Most of those guys had probably been bypassed by the hotshot rabbis of the day. They weren't invited
Yeah.
to be a part of that, the Jerusalem rabbi group. But Jesus saw something in them that nobody else saw.
Yeah.
And so we're looking for people that that have potential, have gifts, have abilities, and sometimes it is the people that other people have bypassed
Mhm.
who are the ones that God wants to use. Let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
Who was your mentor, and what did they see in you?
Yeah, that's interesting. Very good question. And so I think I had uh multiple mentors,
Yeah.
different stages of life. Matter of fact, you would be one of my mentors.
Well,
Came at
thank you.
different stages of life. I remember sitting there talking to you over a meal. But I also I think when it comes to consistent people in my life, that was kind of challenging for me, right? To try to find a consistent
Yeah.
mentor.
Yeah.
Because people are busy, right?
Yeah.
And lives get crazy and stuff like that. But God has a way of bringing certain people into your life when you need things,
Yeah.
right? When
Yeah.
He's ready to move you to different positions or levels of ministry. But I would say the biggest consistency in my life has been outside of the Holy Spirit and the Bible, are books,
Yeah.
right? I was reading
Yeah.
tons of books,
Wow.
right? So trying to understand what ministry looked like. And so like I'm sitting at the feet of people who like lived, 100 years ago, or they're alive, but they live somewhere else and doing
Yeah.
ministry, right? So I think it's important that as new leaders, right, that a part of development is self-development.
Yeah.
So what
Oh,
are you doing
absolutely.
to
Absolutely. Yeah.
prepare when that mentor
Take
comes in?
initiative. But it is kind of sad to me, okay, in a way, that you can't go, oh, it was this guy and that guy. And I'm going, okay, what if we intentionally decide to invest in some person so that when that question is asked of them, they will say, oh, it's you. It's you. I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this today. Um, I didn't watch the whole Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl parade and ceremony after they won that Super Bowl and celebrated in Philadelphia. I didn't watch the whole thing, but what's fascinating is all these NFL teams have all these coaches and trainers and all these behind the scenes people that are pouring into the lives of these players so that they can win. And we know that they weren't on the stage. They didn't come up and give speeches.
Yeah.
And I think what God is looking for are some Christian leaders who are going, you know what, I don't need to have the platform.
That's good.
But I want to be a part of a championship. I want to be a part of helping this kingdom grow and develop. And I don't have to be on the platform. I can be behind the scenes, but the role that I play is a critical role. So I'm going to pour myself into the life of these next leaders that maybe can do more for the kingdom than I was ever able to do. And I think that kind of gets into the vibe of John the Baptist, who in John chapter 3, verse 30, he goes, I must decrease so he can increase. I must grow less prominent so he can grow more so. So I think one of the things that gets in the way of leaders actually investing in the next generation is I'm too busy about trying to create a platform for myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Instead of trying to help that next person have a righteousness and a fruitfulness and a faithfulness that exceeds mine.
Yeah, that's good.
So can we be selfless and realize, hey, this is not about me. This is about Jesus. This is about his kingdom. And I want to help the next generation do better than we did.
Right. Yeah.
So I think sometimes we have to consider those kinds of realities, if become more selfless and giving, and so that somebody in the next generation, when they're asked who invested in you, they got something to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and that's why I am so glad that Pastor Rick Duncan is coming to lead well so that he can be able to impart this wisdom, right, into the next generation of leaders who will be developing future leaders. So, Pastor Rick, thank you so much. I don't want to hold up too much of your time, but I do appreciate you jumping on and being able to, share some of these nuggets. I know we're going to get a whole lot more, right, when it comes to lead well. So thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you.
Well, I'm very honored to be a part of the team. And, I'm an old baseball guy. And when I looked at the lineup that you have, I'm going, okay, I'm the number 9 hitter on this lineup because you got a great lineup there, bro. So I'm looking forward to being with you.
Well, absolutely, brother. Well, y'all, thank y'all so much for tuning in to Lead Well podcast. Make sure you register for Lead Well. It's May 16th and 17th at Mount Calvary Baptist Church in Bedford. And we just look forward to seeing you soon. All right. Thanks so much. God bless. Bye now.